During our last visit to Fire It Up, we saw this Ducati Panigale Tricolore, and we thought it actually has quite an interesting story and a place in the history of Ducati, so we thought we'd share it with you in this episode. Now, Ducati, when World Superbike started, they started with their superbikes named a 851, a 888, became a 916, a 996, a 999, 1098, and so on. And the common thread in all of this is that the number designated in that superbike model refers to the cc of the engine. Now, they veered from tradition with this one and they named it Panigale. Yes, it got 1199, which refers to the cc being a 1198 cc, but they actually brought the name Panigale in. And that is very important because in 2012, when they made this bike, they wanted to immortalize where these bikes were made, these Ducati, Borgo Panigale. And Panigale is also the Motor Valley in Italy, and they're very proud of that tradition and that heritage, so bringing that name into it. And the next thing is, besides the base model and the S, the Tricolore was proudly made in Italy. So this Tricolore, I think, was made for 2 years, 2012, 2013, as a Ducati Panigale S, meaning the upgraded on suspension, 1199. And the other interesting thing about this Panigale, in the whole history of racing World Superbike, they're one of the most successful manufacturers, winning over 300 races and a multiple of titles. At one stage through the 90s, it was even called the Ducati Cup. However, this Panigale is sadly the only shape never to have won a title. They won on an 851, a 888, a 916, a 996, and 1098s, 1198s. Every single one of those bikes won with riders like Troy Bayliss, Carlos Checa, Carl Fogarty, big names. However, Chaz Davies came real close with that. He even won more races in a season than the champion of that season, Johnny Ray. However, inconsistency and a couple of crashes caused him to finish runner-up in the championship. So the Panigale 1199 of the entire twin-cylinder series for Ducati is the only shape that never won the World Superbike title. Now, in this Panigale, they stayed true to the 90-degree V-twin liquid-cooled motor. However, they rotated it back by 6 degrees, which gave it more space at the front wheel to bring it back, and that made this bike so diminutive, really small, like a 600cc bike. The next thing, they evolved, and the whole change in it is that the motor is the stressed member. So if you look, the entire rear swing arm attaching the back wheel is mounted directly onto the back end of the engine block. And the front triple clamp with a frame mounts onto the top of the front cylinder. Now, that is all part of the fact that the designer's got a blank sheet of paper with a brief, lose 10 kilos and find 25 horsepower. And that's what they managed with this engine. This became the most powerful V-twin 90-degree ever produced. There was one upgrade, which was the Panigale R, and that broke 200 horsepower. This unit being the 195 horsepower unit in 2012 when launched, set new standard in World Superbike, small, nimble, light handling. It was set new standards when it came to power to weight ratio for any motorcycle, torque to weight ratio, new standards front to back. The minute you climbed onto this bike and you saw this triple clamp with these hollowed out, lightly machined and electronic front suspension, full active suspension, you immediately knew you were on a race bike, honed for the racetrack. Now going down, you will see the suspension front and rear, full Öhlins. Even your steering damper is Öhlins. Your wheels, they also hark back to the original 916. The 916 had a 3-spoke wheel. Now you've got a modern spin on that with a triple 3-spoke wheel. Also Marcassini, really light forged wheel, excellent for racing. Everything about this bike. In 2012, when the bike came out, was more or less the time when Audi took over Ducati, and you will see the influence. It's the first bike with full LED lighting. You will see the front headlights side by side, but a smaller LED lighting, back to the Tamburini 916 design with the air vents just below it. At the back, a really cool feature, how the LED brake lights surround the air ducts Very cool. And just an amazing piece of equipment. Just very sad that they never got it right in World Superbike to give this bike the glory that it deserves. The most obvious and visual differences from the Ducati Superbikes from 916, 996, 999, 1098 era is that the under-seat exhausts have been moved down to the bottom. Lower the center of gravity, and just a big design change from a visual point of view. The World Superbike racers at one stage picked them up over here, but for the road-going models all the way to the end of the era of the twin cylinders, they were at the bottom. The Tricolore, being the S model, had the upgraded performance exhaust, which is terminology synonymous with Ducati performance. You will also see that the fairing is extremely tight around the motor. They even had to cut out certain sections to make space for the exhaust and the heat. You'll also see that the S model, it has some carbon pieces like front mudguard, heat shields. Also with this Panigale, it was the first to get the full upgraded TFT full color display. So all around, just an exquisite piece in the history of the World Superbike races and the end of the development of the 90-degree V-twin motor for Ducati World Superbike races. Panigale, Borgo Panigale, Motor Valley, Tricolore, proudly made in Italy. Now, I hope you enjoyed this episode with us. Whenever you come to fire it up, you never know what you're going to run into. There's some really cool and rare pieces you don't see all the time. So thanks to Fire It Up for this opportunity. If you enjoyed this episode, remember to click like and subscribe and see what's up next.